All right. Hello, everybody. This is Ashish Fernando from iSchool Connect. I'm the founder and CEO, and I am super delighted to talk to you guys today. Uh, Today, I'm just relaxing at home. We're just going to talk about your questions. We're going to talk about study abroad choices, typically international admissions, what countries are the right for you, and we're going to just have some fun. Just talk about not just all the good parts of studying in these countries, but we'll also talk about what else is out there in terms of just having fun, a life that you can live, jobs, a lot of other things. So I'm excited to see um, where y'all are all going to study. So use the chat, please, and let me know what countries y'all are interested in. I'll talk about a few that I know. I mean, and we send a lot of students there to the U.S., to Canada, Australia, the UK, a bunch of countries, and I'm going to just help you understand if the country that you're going for is the right choice and for you, and if not, what else should you be thinking about. I'll also probably tell you a little bit of my story as well, but. Hey guys, wow, you all are going straight for it. I love it. Mayank, Karthik, Tamanna, Videsh, there's a bunch of you here. Awesome. Um, okay, good. Karthik, you're determined to go to France. I like it. Okay, good. Let's talk about it. But first, guys, I wanna also know from you all. I'm assuming you're going either for your undergrad or for your grad, right? If there's anybody, any of our students, viewers, subscribers who are looking for high school or beyond graduation, like PhD and other kind of things, also let me know. But this is fantastic. All right, good. So a lot of you are going to Europe. Wow, that's interesting. So when back in the day when I was thinking about what should be the right place to go and study, I was always, like everybody, I was like mesmerized by the US. And a lot of my friends were already in the US. I was actually pretty late to come to the US. My friends came for their master's degree or graduation, whereas I did my undergrad in India. Just a quick story on myself. I did my undergrad in India in biotech, and then I did my post graduation, my master's, also in India in biotech. And then I came to the US to do my MBA. But then I had a little bit of 4 years, maybe around 4 years, that I worked in India. Helped me tremendously in getting my full scholarship for my MBA, and it was a one year MBA. So that's my backstory there. Um, Now, talking about you guys. So let's see, how many of you are here for the US? One, two, two. Okay, good. Canada, there's one, two, three. Shivam, I think that's a Canadian flag. It's too small in the chat. Okay, good. And then Australia, we have one, two, three, four. All right, awesome. So let's talk one by one. Maybe let's go right to left on the political world map. Let's start with Australia. All right. Uh, People who have chosen Australia as their study choice. Uh, Great decision, of course. I don't think any of these countries I would say, oh, why? Except except Italy for Yash. No, I'm kidding. Italy is also pretty good. I love Italy for a lot of reasons. We'll talk about it. Australia. So what's good about Australia? The number one reason why a lot of Indians, a lot of students migrate to Australia is obviously the ability to get to a PR status or permanent residence status pretty quickly. Australia is been very good with allowing people to stay back after study and get their PR. Now, Australia is a little tricky. So I don't know if you all know, but all over Australia, like if you consider schools and institutions that you can go to, there's like 15 of them. Literally, there's just 15 of them. Because when you look at the country of Australia, it's mostly all desert, right? It's not called a desert, it's called the outback. But Australia is made of just few cities on the shoreline, Sydney, Canberra, Perth, Melbourne, and these are the cities where you have the universities, and people study there. So in terms of your ability to maneuver around, there's not a lot that you can do. um, but the thing about Australia is, you can, even though you have just 15 institutions, each of those institutions take at least over, maybe, around 7 to 8 thousand students a year in different programs. Don't consider this just for like undergrad or grad, altogether, like certificate courses online and everything. So Australia, even though it has just 15 schools, and compared to, like, let's say the US, around 2000 institutions, 2000 compared to 15. But still, Australia takes about 600,000 students every year for just undergrad and grad. And 600,000 is like 6 lakh in Indian. And that's a pretty decent number. So, talking about a few things, talking about eligibility and will I get through, your chances are pretty high. Compared to the US, compared to the UK, your chances are pretty high if you're a decent enough student, you've got good grades. You feel free, guys, to put your profile information, or anything out there to ask me, right? But the folks who are going to Australia, I'm talking mostly for you. Ask me any questions. Tamanna, Muhammad, Siddhant, please. Um, and these schools that will, so once you get to Australia, once you study there, you will realize that you do not have a lot of space to maneuver. So pick your city very carefully, right? Look at YouTube videos. It's the best place to look at how these cities are. Talk to your friends, talk to your counselors. If any of you are on the iSchool Connect plan, talk to your counselors about what's the right way to connect with students locally. We have a lot of students who go through our platform, so you can connect to them, talk to them, engage with them, and make sure that you understand what's the scenario like once you leave your institution, right? But Australia, I think, is a great choice for people who are going for masters in any type of engineering or non-engineering fields. I mean, they're really coming up pretty well. Computer science is good, but when you think of AI, machine learning, your access to good programs is going to be less, right? uh, my dog decided to join our YouTube live session. Ozzy, go down. All right. Okay, so what else about Australia? Ask me questions, guys. I'm happy to answer. Because Australia is pretty straightforward for me. I have a lot of friends there. We have a lot of students who've gone to Australia, and you can really get a lot out of that country for sure. Um, any specific questions here? Is Australia a costly place to live in? The beauty about Australia is that before you go, you should research enough and find Indians who live in Australia. Every city in Australia has a pretty decent sized Indian population. And of course, through iSchool Connect, you have the accommodation module, and you can find accommodation. But the best way also is to, through our counselors, you should ask them what's the best way to connect and find roommates, right? So there are a lot of apps that you should use. For instance, there's roommates.com. That is, as the name suggests, you find roommates there, and you can actually find Indian roommates pretty quickly. There's another site which is very Indian. I'm sure a lot of y'all know about it. It's Sulekha. Sulekha is a website that you can use to find Indians living across the globe also. Like Sulekha works in even in the US. So Please use all of that, find places. Now, a lot of people talk about racism in Australia. Yeah, guys, like it's a pretty big topic to talk about. Racism in Australia is, in my opinion, not as much. uh, the news channels, the media tends to highlight uh, cases like even if there's like one case of racism, of course they want to highlight it because it makes news. um, but remember, I mean, wherever you go, it's a different country. You're gonna at some point you may experience something, you may find somebody or talk to somebody who actually gives you a different vibe, right? Who's, yeah. I mean, yes, there have been one or two cases where like people have gotten shot, and it was termed as racism. But it's also about picking the right place to live. So in Australia, same applies to the US. Tamanna, you're asking about you if US is better, right? It's the same, guys. Like if you live in the right spots where there is a low crime rate, like for instance in the US, you should use a website called niche.com, niche, niche.com. Use that website. I'm sure there are similar websites for Australia as well, but they show you the crime rates of each city. Do not live, when I say city, I don't mean like, oh, Mumbai. No. The way cities are organized globally are within Mumbai. Like for instance, Andheri is a city, and then Thane is another city or whatever. But each city has a crime rate index. Make sure you live in the right place. It doesn't matter if you're in Australia, the US, UK. There is going to be racism, there's going to be chaos, there's going to be crime. It's common. It's even there in India, right? Like there's cases of crime, there's cases of whatever, like shootings and rape and so many things. We have to be smart enough, guys, to avoid places where we might face something like that. That's the thing I would tell everybody. Don't be worried. We when we look at the news, we talk to like friends and relatives come home and they say, oh, मैंने तो न्यूज़ में पढ़ा था वहां पे रेसिज्म बहुत है. मैंने तो न्यूज़ में देखा था कि क्या like kids are getting shot. But guys, like these are cases, it's a huge country, and if you see that these cases happen in certain pockets, right? So like in the US you will see a lot of cases happening in the Midwest, like middle of the country. Yeah, right. There are many reasons to that, there are many political reasons to that, I won't get into that. But look for places, like all you need to do is a simple Google search. Like if you're, let's say you're going to the University of Sydney, simple Google search: Sydney crime rates, Sydney international students, Sydney India student, whatever. You will start seeing information. If you see a lot of negative information, talk to your counselors. Like, hey, I mean, your counselors are already aware of what cities you're going to, what schools you're going to, especially if you are an iSchool Connect registered students. Your counselors are not going to send you to a place where you may not be able to survive, right? So Australia, yeah, there is racism. That's what I would say, but do not do not keep that as a reason to say, oh my God, I'm not going to Australia. It is a great place to study. It has a huge Indian population, and it offers really good PR, permanent residence, and it's affordable. Compared to a lot of the other countries, Australia is pretty affordable, guys. Right? Um, okay. From the right of the world, we'll go to the left because I'm seeing a lot of questions on the US. So let's talk about the US. Okay. Um, mm, 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 mm. Okay. Videsh with Vaibhav. I see some questions, guys. I'll come back to that. Okay, I'm just trying to optimize our time. So, US Komal says, I have 5 year gap after 12th. Can I get a visa for the US? Komal, um, what did you do in those 5 years? Would love to understand that. Getting a visa for the US It's a combination of many things. But of course, if you have, like, let's say you've not studied or worked for 5 years, there is going to be a question there, but only if you're going to study, right? I'm assuming you want to go there to study after 12th, which means you're probably wanting to do an undergrad program. It's important in your essay to tell the school what happened in those 5 years. If it's something private and personal, you don't have to put it on the chart here, but you have to tell a story. Stories always sell, guys, right? Any school in any country, any of you who have gaps, who have backlogs, remember that it's not a reason to say that school is not going to accept me. Schools are okay with that. In fact, in the US, like in Western countries, it is actually part of culture to take a 1 year gap, to take a they call it a gap year. And students take a gap year after high school, after undergrad, or during undergrad. They travel, they go and see places. So gaps are okay. We are told, in our Indian education system, we are told that, oh my god, KT hai, backlog hai, gap hai, success nahi milega in life. No, that's not the case at all. That's a myth. You need a story, right? So Komal, I have not seen your reply to that, but that's that. But okay, let's talk about the US a little bit. Sanjeev is asking choices apart from US. Okay, we'll come to that. Muhammad is asking, or US is better than. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's answer those questions about the US. So, guys, the US is by far the most sought after destination amongst all the countries. And it may not have to be looked at like that. So when it comes to the US, yes, there are more than 2,000 institutions that you can go and attend and you can get a degree from. Um, but there are a few things. So, number one, it's expensive to study in the US. It is. But they also give a lot of scholarships. So these are the two things that I would urge you to think together on. Okay, so if, like, I did my MBA, and the course fees was $100,000. $100,000. It's close to 80 lakhs per year. But how much did I pay? Zero. I got a full scholarship to the US. So typically, when you look at US institutions, you look at the tuition fee, it's going to scare you, right? But that does not mean, oh, you cannot afford it. The US is also the country that gives the most scholarships. Now, what does scholarship depend on? Scholarship depends on your scores, number one. So if you have a good GPA, that's a good start. Let's say you have a out of 4 you have a 3.0 or 3.2, sorry, 3.2 plus GPA, or in your, like, typical 100% grading system, let's say you are at about 80, 85. It depends, actually, like, depends on where in India you're from. Like, if you're from the south, they're expecting you to have about 85, 90. If you're from, like, the west side, it's expected to be lower. But it matters. Your extracurriculars matter. Like, students who are going to the US, make sure that you are doing really well on your extracurriculars. Very, very, very important. They look at that. They will give you scholarships for that. Schools in the US, of course, you're talking, I'm sure, to your counselors, and they're giving you good schools in the US. But know that it takes time to get permanent residence in the United States. Okay, it's not as fast as Australia or Germany. It takes time, but that doesn't mean it's hard. It just means that your work visa keeps extending. That's just how the US works. So you will apply for your PR, and then your work visa, typically it's 6 years. You get a 6 years of work visa, which is the H1B, but that keeps extending if your application is pending for a permanent residence, a PR. Now, once you get a PR in the US, it is one of the strongest things to have. Just with a PR, you can travel to, I think, over like 30 countries, I think, just if you have a PR. And then once you convert that into a citizenship, you can travel to, like, I think about 80, 85 countries or something. It's like some insane number. So the value of a US permanent residency is pretty high. Getting to the US is selective. That does not mean it's harder, right? People think that US visas get rejected all the time. No, it's just the amount of people applying. The amount of people applying to the US is way higher than the amount of people applying to some of these other countries for the courses in that quota. And so you have to just stand out. You have to make sure that you are trained well. Talk to your counselors, be trained well, and you should be good. Is Australia a costly place to live in, Siddhant? The answer is no. Find roommates. You can live for up anywhere from around $200 to $300 a month. You can easily find something to live there, which is pretty good. Um, Sanjeev, apart from these countries, what are other choices? You've pretty much covered most of the good ones. It depends on your program as well. I mean, when it's medicine, people go up to, like, I mean, they used to go to Russia, Ukraine. Even now, students are going to Russia, Ukraine, even with the war going on, which is crazy. But it depends on some of that as well. Japan is coming up. South Korea is coming up really well for engineering programs. A lot of students are going there. So, but the countries you've listed are, I mean, those are the typical easy choices. Um, which university is best for BSc MLT? Elaborate on MLT, please. Do you mean, what is that? Machine learning? Uh, because there are many, and it also depends on your profile. Guys, make sure that you're not always thinking of just the MIT league or the Ivy Leagues, right? Think about second tier or slightly lower ranked schools. You always have a better chance of getting a better scholarship, getting better admission results when you apply to slightly lower ranked schools. That's a tip. um, Okay, let's see. Oops, it's scrolling so fast. Siddhant, is getting jobs easy in Australia while studying? Now, getting jobs, be it any country, here's what you should know, guys. A lot of students go to these countries and then realize after like 6 months or a year that there are much easier ways to get a job. So you need to find local listings. Okay, so like Craigslist, Sulekha actually is a good one, even though it's not a local, but it's an Indian listing. But any local like listing for jobs when people sell old stuff, and you will find a lot of listings of people who will like where you can work at the restaurant or you can work at an Indian supermarket. There's a lot of ways to make money while you're studying. Now, not a lot of schools allow a full-time work permit where you can get paid and you have to pay taxes, and not all of that. But that doesn't mean you cannot do something and make a little bit of money. Okay, I cannot talk about a lot of that here in on a live session, but talk to your counselors about that. It is very important. Here's the tip I can give you though: before you go for your studies, make sure, guys, you look at two things. One is graduate assistantship. Okay, note this down: graduate assistantship. The second is teaching assistantship. You you can have the university pay for some of the work that you do for the university, which is totally like, you don't even need a work permit, you don't need anything. You can work at the university and they take some money off of your tuition. A lot of students don't know this. You can actually find that, especially when you come to Canada, the US. That happens a lot, and you should be able to get those jobs inside the university, make some quick and easy money. Australia, there are a lot of external jobs. Find local listings in Australia. Just search for it. Um, Karthik scored 7.89 in BE CSE. Okay, have done data analytics. I'm working as a developer for past 1 year. Not relevant. Okay, no problem. What are my chances of getting a seat in France for MSc in data science? I'm guessing DS data science. Yeah, okay. So France is a very interesting one. If you have the ability to also speak in French, it actually adds value, Karthik. But in general, I would say for a 7.89, I'm guessing that's on a 10 scale, with some data analytics experience. Um, I would say it's pretty decent, but my question to you is, and I'm being very careful because if you've chosen France, you've chosen France. I don't want to be the one saying, oh, that's a bad choice. But there are countries where you will get a better bang for your buck. Now, France is very attractive when it comes to, like, yeah, I want to live there, I want to enjoy Europe. You can travel around Europe, and all of that becomes very easy. It becomes very cheap. I don't know if you'll know, but you can travel in Europe between countries. Like, you can go from France to Germany for like $30, $40 sometimes. So it becomes very easy. It's very lucrative when you think of those countries. But for a data science program, I would urge you to think of some other countries. Yeah, US, Canada, Australia are much better choices when it comes to long term ability to make money and employability. Those are better choices for data science programs. France is not bad. No country that way is bad, guys. Like, if you said, oh, can I go to China and study data science? Of course you can. Like, there are some good institutions everywhere, but when it comes to your future life, you have to think about it a little more carefully. You have to make some choices that may not be very attractive initially, but may lead to a really good end state. Think of me as an example. I got my admission to Yale University. Yale University, guys. This is like rank third. Sometimes it ranks even higher than third, but usually rank three or four in the world for business. I let go of it. I let go of my Yale admit. Yes. uh, and I took an admit from Bentley University. Most of you might not have even heard of it, but I did it. And guess what? I I took zero loans because when you have a Yale admit, so when you have a higher ranked school's admit, you can use that. The schools that are slightly lower ranked will look at it in a positive way, and they may give you a better option. So, guys, any country you're going to, make sure that you're thinking about not just your dream school options, right? In iSchool Connect, we have Dream, Reach, and Safe buckets. I'm sure you all know that. Do not always look at your dream school options. Sometimes the Reach and the Safe schools will look at your dream school admit and give you a much better choice. And sometimes it's the best thing to do. That's what I did. It changed my life. Okay, I got a full scholarship. uh, I paid no money. I got out of there. I Today I work with graduates from Yale, but they work for me. Isn't that funny? um, and I did not go to Yale. And that applies to all countries. So do not be disheartened if you don't get your dream school. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. Okay. So Karthik, for France, yes, I mean, you may not. I mean, I'm again being careful. Sometimes you never know. You get your dream school. So I don't want to say, oh, it's hard to get into a top school with that profile. No, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Germany, guys, yeah, Germany is pretty safe. I mean, it's one of the nicest places to study. You have to, of course, know German. That's a prerequisite because a lot of people there converse in German. They don't even speak English. Um, veterinary for UG in Germany, Siddhant, is good. It's better slightly if you go slightly right from there. Like, the UK uh, left or right, actually. The UK is also pretty good for veterinary science. And I actually have my own friends. We have students, of course, but I have my own friends also in Germany doing they did the veterinary sciences, and now are doctors there and treat doggos like this guy. This is Mozzie. Mozzie, say hi. um, all right. Is Singapore good? NUS, NTU versus other. Yes. NUS and NTU will compare to some of the best schools, even in the US. Depends on what programs you're going for, especially if you're going for business. AMEA, they are just wonderful, wonderful schools to study at. That's the thing in Singapore, though. Outside of NUS, NTU, and a couple of others, not even couple, like literally NUS and NTU is what what you should be aiming for if you're going to Singapore. The good thing about Singapore is it's really close to India. The not so good thing about Singapore is everybody talks about racism in America and Australia and all this, but Singapore is actually one of the hardest places, right? You cannot get to a residency or citizenship at all. It's very hard um, to even think of it in those lines. There's actually a lot of Indians there, and Singaporeans have a little bit of a harsh reaction to people from India living there and working there. So there are a few things you got to think about. Uh, Universities in the US that compare to NUS, NTU, up top 20, pick them, and they are either comparable or better than NUS and NTU. But that doesn't mean you switch your thought to the US, right? Like you think about it carefully. Um, but yes, NUS, NTU, brilliant, brilliant campuses. Which university should I choose? One with excellent research prospects but a poor location, or one with good location but mediocre research opportunities? When you're starting a business or anything else, Chinmay, location is the number one thing that you want, right? When you're studying, no. Some of the best schools are in the middle of nowhere, nowhere, right? So you should really think about it. Like schools like Carnegie Mellon in the middle of like Ithaca, New York State, not New York City. It's like in the middle of the state somewhere. Pennsylvania State University, wonderful school, but it's literally in the middle of a complete like no man's land. The only thing in that city is like Pennsylvania State University. So location should not matter when you're studying. Uh, Proximity to to business hubs matters maybe, but there is always a business hub somewhere, right? So like if you're studying in, let's say, Pennsylvania State University, it's on the East Coast. Yeah, there's like nothing around it, but then you can travel for like an hour or maybe two, I think, and you reach some of the best places, right? So uh, do not pick do not pick based on location. Please pick based on research prospects. Very important. um, all right, y'all are seeing the Book My Show raffle. Please participate in it, guys. That one is going to be announced shortly. We're giving away Book My Show tickets to some lucky few of you who stick around. Um, is Canada good for job opportunities? Canada is really facing a stress when it comes to job opportunities for internationals. For the last 2 3 years, Canada was the perfect place to go, but because of all the influx of students from India and other countries, now Canada is facing a lot of stress when it comes to jobs. So there are a lot of even Indians who are doing jobs like driving Ubers after they finish their study, like driving Ubers. And you should know this. A lot of like Indians used to go to Canada just to migrate, right? So like not to study but to migrate. Like a lot of a population from North India goes to Canada because their families live there, their relatives live there. So here's how you should think about jobs, guys. There is always a job for the right talent, right? So a lot of students get paranoid about, oh my god, will I get a job? If you study hard, if you spend your time doing the right things, networking with companies, going and meeting people while you're studying, understanding what's out there in the market, there is always going to be a job for you, be it Canada, US, Australia, UK. There will always be a job. Right? So you should be positive about it. Uh, Omita is saying, sir, I want to know about. Oh, there are some more Canada questions before that. Thoughts on Canada? Is it as good as it sounds? Pravesh, I don't know how you pronounce your name, Pravesh Swain. Uh, Thoughts on Canada? Is it as good? Listen, every place has its good or bad or ugly. My favorite place in Canada is Vancouver. So, like, if you look at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, in Canada, man, hands down, it's so beautiful. And Vancouver is such a great city. I mean, you could live there and it will add like 10 years to your lifespan. It's that good. Montreal is another place that's pretty decent. But yeah, I mean, study at some good schools. There are some really good schools in Canada, and if you get into those schools, your prospects are pretty good. Like the University of Waterloo is really famous for its engineering programs. So you should look at that. UBC, University of British Columbia, sort of School of Business, very popular for its MBA. And guys, like, it's beautiful out there. Like my one of my dreams is to go and ski in British Columbia. There is a ski resort called Whistler. It is ranked the number one ski resort in the world. I haven't skied there. I'm actually a big ski guy. I love going out to ski. I live in Utah, and like there are ski resorts like 15, 20 minutes from my house. So yes, but a lot of times when we think of studies, we only think about, oh my God, yeah, study, 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 job, 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 PR, work, visa, visa. Sometimes you also have to think about what's around the place. Like it's yeah. So that's why, like, I picked Salt Lake to live here, but then I picked Boston to study. Again, beautiful place, guys. So yeah. How I want to know about scholarship and how to apply without IELTS. Omita is asking how to apply without IELTS. You can there's a lot. So uh, a funny response that would be that you could apply with your TOEFL, but uh, IELTS is a test of English. TOEFL is a test of English. Nowadays, there are schools that are accepting also the Duolingo test or the KITE exam. But why do you want to go? Why do you want to apply without IELTS? Here's the thing: if you think your English is not to the mark, and you may score a low grade there, you should know that you will anyway struggle if your English is not at like a 90 at least on a TOEFL, or at least a six and a half band on an IELTS. Why do you want to struggle there? It's actually better to just learn some of that in India and get a decent score. I mean, guys, like getting a decent score on an English test is not that hard. I studied for one day and I got 118 out of 120 on my TOEFL. Like, it's not that hard. Um, all right. Wow. How many more questions? How was your experience at Yale? No, I did not go to Yale. Like I said, I got my Yale admit, but I went to Bentley, and I studied there because I did not want to pay money to Yale and study there, get a loan, and I thought there were much better ways of making money and getting a job. Um, Omita, Norway University, Masters in Plant Genetics. Is it good? I actually, to be very honest, I know of Norway University, but I have no idea how their programs perform at that level. Norway is a great place for anything to do with genetic engineering. Because Norway is, right, it's the seed reserve of the world. Like, they do a lot of research on how to save the world's seed population, and they do a lot of research around it. So I know that specifically about Norway University. Please send an email, ashish@ischoolconnect.com. Omita, we'll talk about that. Aditya, pursuing my CS undergraduate course, should I seek experience before I apply or should I go direct? No, please go directly. When you're thinking about undergrad, you do not need work experience. Just go for it. You will be fine. Your work experience will not add anything much in terms of your value um, uh, towards even a. It may help you to get a better scholarship if they give one. In undergrad, you should know that you get lesser scholarships, right? And if you have some work experience, you might get a slightly better scholarship. But I wouldn't really bank on that. I mean, you're still spending a couple of years trying to get that work experience. You rather go and study. Sita Lakshmi, applying for masters in CS or PhD directly, which is better? I'm assuming then you are completing your undergrad. Even if you apply, so you're thinking when you say PhD, you're probably thinking of a dual program, like a master's to PhD style program, or do apply for a PhD. Yeah, so where you get your master's in the first 1 or 2 years. It's the exact same as that in India, right? Like in India, you could apply to an Indian Institute of Science and get a there's also a dual degree bachelor's and master's. There's also a dual like PhD and master's. It's the same. Typically it's easier to apply for your master's, and while you're in your master's, um, it's better to look for choices around, unless, because see, the PhD application is a whole different beast. There are many people applying for one position under one guide, so it actually takes some time. Some time for you to get to the right guide. Getting into a master's program alone is much easier, so I would suggest that. um, okay, then we have Cochin Harbor. I want to pursue computer science. Is UAE a good option? Oh, wow. UAE, there are better options. I would say I don't want to deter anybody from the choices that they're making. Like I said, you could study anywhere and still get to a good life decision, make money. So I don't want to deter anybody, but computer science, honestly, if you're going abroad, there are better options there. In UAE, there are satellite campuses of Indian schools, right? There are many campuses of schools in UAE. You could look at those, but it's almost like going outside and studying at an Indian university. So that's up to you totally. Cochin Harbor, which is the best country in Europe for computer science? Yeah, computer science in Europe, there are multiple options. I mean, Germany is really coming up. There are now courses beyond engineering that students are taking in Germany. Ireland is actually coming up really, really strong. You all should look at it. Also pretty affordable. These countries are offering good scholarships, for you to look at. Other than those, I mean, the UK is typically a business focused place, but there are schools in the UK that also are good. um, okay, we're almost at time. Jiva, if someone has 4 year gap after post graduation and zero experience in job except tuitions, so then PhD is, anything is possible. You just have to have a good story for the 4 years. I don't know what your story is, what you have done, but as long as you're able to tell a good story. Now I cannot tell you, oh yeah, just make something up. No, but part of it is also take what you have and build a good story around it, and it's always possible. And if you can tie that story closer to the PhD thesis or the subject of choice that you're applying to, then it's even better. But yes, do not worry about gaps. We've had people who've taken 2 3 year gaps and gotten into some of the best schools in the country. Right. um, Mo, good evening to you. Mo. um, oh, Mayank, I missed your question, I'm sorry. Mayank. Talk more on tactics to get a great scholarship for European countries, especially no tuition. Yes, okay. I'm guessing that's the question you're talking about. Sorry, I missed it. Uh, it's I'll give you one tip. Be different. And I'll not just stop there. I'll even tell you how to be different in some ways. So when I applied for my MBA, and I had to write a little essay on why I should get an admit to this school. I I'm pretty sure, the only guy who started his essay with a picture. I put a picture in my essay, and I wrote about it, and and it was a picture about me back in the day when I was much younger, with a bunch of like officers in a tie, and I said, "This is how I see myself," and I kind of built a story around it for a business degree, and it made sense. Um, so there are many ways to kind of stand out, but if you do not have good scores, here's the thing, guys. If you have good scores, you've got some, like accolades, you're a sports person, you have some certificates, getting a full scholarship in Germany, for instance, is pretty easy, honestly, that way. But if you do not have all of that, then you have to make up for it by saying why you, why not the other person. So it really helps to write a cover letter. It helps to write to the school. It helps, guys. Number one thing, a lot of students don't do this. Get to know the admissions committee, right? Talk to your counselors, get to know the person on the other side. Just send random, I was sending like random texts to the admissions officers on LinkedIn and other places when I was applying. So by the time they made a decision about my profile, they already knew who I was. Like, these are a lot of tactics, Mayank, that will really help you, and you should make sure that you make good use of internet. That's your secret. You can do a lot of things just on the internet. Find people, find places, and at the school, and interact. um, okay. Aditya, oh, I missed what you were saying. Okay, you are currently pursuing undergrad. Okay. Experience before applying to graduate CS course. Okay, yes. Then experience helps. Yes, you are right. I'm sorry. I thought you're applying for undergrad. When you're applying for a graduate program, yes. But you don't need more than 2 years of work ex. If you have around 2 years of work ex at a valuable brand, that will add a lot of value. Like if you say, oh, I work for XYZ Technologies in Mumbai, it may not really add value, right? Because over the last decade, like, people have been submitting fake certificates of like jobs that they have, and all of that, and it's become very hard. So but if you're like working for a good company, 2 years of work ex, yes, I would totally recommend that. um, all right, guys. We are at time here. I'm seeing a few more questions from Cochin Harbor. You're asking about specific university names in Ireland. I mean, yeah, that's something that you should talk to our counselors about also in Germany. Okay, please talk. I can talk about university names, but we can probably do that in another conversation. Graduate assistantships, yes. So guys, here's the thing. Picking a school, I'll just summarize about picking a school. Picking a school is not about ranking alone. A lot of students think, I need to take the school that has the topmost ranking. No, sometimes it's also about proximity to places where you can find a job. It depends on what value you're looking for. It sometimes depends on the level of research that goes on. Like, for instance, University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Have you even heard of that school? Nobody's heard of that school. But students from there go and do they get some of the best jobs at Google, like machine learning, computer science, right? So you should really think about schools that are outside of just rankings, right? So that's, I mean, yeah, that's what I tell students all the time. Like, don't be obsessed by just like names of universities and like, yeah, that I want to go here and do this. But yeah, so I would suggest that. But like in Ireland, I think somebody was asking this question, like Trinity College in Dublin is a really, really good one. I know a lot of people who go there. A one that's less known is like University of Limerick. Um, People go there, a lot of students go there too. So like Ireland, those are really good schools for you to think about. But yeah, guys, you if you have any questions, make sure you send it to your counselors. You can send it also to me directly, Ashish at ischoolconnect.com, or you can just join some of these sessions. Tell your friends and people around you to join these sessions. Ask me questions. I'm happy to answer these questions and talk to you about all of this, anything to do with study abroad. Good luck. Take care, everybody.